Working an oil rig can return a pretty high-paying salary for those working on board, and this is one of the reasons why it can be a treacherous occupation. Join me as we take a look at 15 of the most dangerous oil rigs in the world. Number 15. The Borgholm Dolphin. The North Sea is known for being a rough place to set sail in. Yet for those working on the North Sea oil rigs, the roughness is felt 24/7. That's because they never get a break from the stormy weather, and this is clearly true for those staying on the Borgholm Dolphin. As seen in this clip, severe waves hit the rig at a constant rate, and because it floats on the surface, it's super easy to get seasick while on it. So yeah, I'm gonna say that working on this oil rig is far from pleasant. Number 14. The Mobile Alabama Rig. While most oil rigs are designed to put up with strong waves and bad weather, things can get pretty hairy during a hurricane. As seen from this clip taken from an oil rig off the shores of Mobile, Alabama, oil rigs have a tough time dealing with hurricanes. In this case, the rig is being hit by Hurricane Zeta, which created 240 km/h winds and waves that were up to 15 meters high. What makes this rig unique is that while it is standard practice for workers to be evacuated from rigs during hurricanes, this rig decided to keep its workers on board. But I'd say that making the laborers work on this rig through Hurricane Zeta wasn't exactly the best of calls by management. Number 13. The Hemphill County Oil Rig. Texas is known for having a lot of oil, and while the state is a relatively safe place to drill for oil, it's not immune to the effects of tornadoes. 3 workers at a drilling rig in Hemphill County, Texas learned this the hard way when on May 27th of 2015, a tornado hit their drill in the small town of Canadian, Texas. While 2 of the workers suffered minor injuries, a third suffered an impalement to the abdomen, and all 3 had to be rushed to hospital. I think it's fair to say that the Hemphill County oil rig will need to undergo some safety improvements going forward. Number 12. Antarctica. Antarctica is known for being extremely cold, and while this makes it a less than ideal place to do business, the fact that it may hold billions of barrels of oil make it the perfect place to set up shop. As of now, drilling in Antarctica is banned as per the 1959 Antarctic Treaty, but in February of 2020, Russia's state-run geological surveyor Rosgeologia made the controversial decision to survey 4,400 kilometers off the coast of Antarctic's Queen Maud Land. And while Russian drilling in the region may not be realized until a later date, I'd bet that building a rig here would be pretty risky business due to both the horrendous weather the rig would have to undergo and the political backlash such a move would cause. Number 11. Ras Tanura. The Middle Eastern region has certainly been a hotbed of activity in recent years, and in March of 2021, things really reached a head when Yemen's Houthi rebels began launching drones and firing missiles at the Ras Tanura oil rigs in Saudi Arabia. You see, this place is a major hub for oil company Saudi Aramco, and the facility pumps out hundreds of thousands of barrels per day. However, to the south of Saudi Arabia lies the country of Yemen, which is currently in the midst of a civil war. Since Saudi Arabia is partaking in this war, the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in the east of Yemen consider Saudi Arabia to be an enemy, and as a result they attack Ras Tanura. Although no casualties or property damage occurred, this was not a one-off, as it's quite common for both Ras Tanura and the other Saudi Arabian oil facilities to be attacked by Houthi militants. Number 10. Chechen Oil Rigs. Chechnya has always been a thorn in the side of the Russian government. After all, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Chechen resistance groups have reportedly tried to gain independence from Russia through a series of civil wars and the efforts of a never-ending resistance movement, although the region's high amount of oil has made such independence highly undesirable for the Russian government. However, it should come as no surprise that in order to resist the Russians, Chechens have repeatedly attacked oil rigs in the area. More specifically, many oil rigs were knocked down during the post-Soviet civil wars, and even today the area loses significant quantities of oil every year from both pipe siphoning and oil transport vehicle theft. So should there be another armed conflict, it's highly likely that Chechnya's oil rigs will be either occupied by rebels or completely destroyed. Number 9. Mexican oil rigs. It's no secret that cartels control a significant portion of Mexico's economy, and it's not a surprise that these cartels also have a stake in the oil industry. Rather than go through legal means, cartels are known to terrorize oil producers by resorting to large-scale theft. More specifically, they're known to either tap into high-pressure pipes or, in more dangerous operations, use their fleets of armored cars to approach both oil transport vehicles and oil rigs and essentially force them to hand over the oil. Sometimes thieves will even resort to piracy, with a notable event occurring in 2019 when the Fortius rig, which is located in the Gulf of Mexico, was attacked by a band of pirates. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that drilling for oil in either Mexico or its surrounding waters is far from safe. Number 8. The Sea Rose. The waters off the Canadian East Coast are known for being treacherous, as it's not uncommon for rigs to have to deal with frigid cold temperatures and stormy conditions. However, the area is also home to many icebergs, and while massive rigs such as the Hibernia are designed to withstand iceberg hits, most oil rigs are not. The Sea Rose knows this all too well. It's located around 350 kilometers northeast of the mainland, and it's been threatened by icebergs on a near constant basis. In 2015, it received its first scare when an iceberg came close. However, nothing came of the incident. Then, in 2017, a 40 by 60 meter iceberg came within just 180 meters of the platform, necessitating the depressurization of production wells and the gathering of crew just in case they had to evacuate. Then, in 2018, things almost got really hairy when, despite the fact that an iceberg was near, Husky did not prepare for a possible condition, causing the Canadian Newfoundland and Labrador Offshore Petroleum Board to suspend the Sea Rose's license. While this license has been reinstated, I think it's fair to say that this oil rig operates in pretty risky waters. Number 7. Hibernia. As far as oil rigs go, Hibernia is certainly a standout. It's located about 300 kilometers offshore from Canada's east coast city of St. John's. It's absolutely massive, and its ridiculously heavy weight of 637,000 tons makes it one of the largest oil rigs in the world. Now, while this large oil rig certainly is productive, after all it produces an impressive 126,000 barrels of crude per day, it isn't exactly in the safest of locations. The rig is located in what's arguably one of the most hazardous places on Earth to be out on the water. After all, the rig is located in an area that's considered to be the foggiest place on the planet, as it's foggy up to 80% of the time during the summer. Even during summertime, temperatures range from -8 degrees Celsius to as much as 20. And in the wintertime, temperatures get far colder, leading to a lot of weather-related damage to the rig and weather-related mood swings in those working there. To top this off, the winds average out at speeds of 37 kilometers per hour, making it far from comfortable to work in. So yeah, it's fair to say that the Hibernia is subject to some of the worst climatic conditions on Earth. Number 6. Nigerian oil rigs. When it comes to West Africa, Nigeria is an absolute heavyweight in terms of oil production. After all, the country has the 10th highest amount of proven oil reserves in the entire world, and it's known for its large oil rigs, such as the Abgami FPSO. However, while the country could easily be one of the richest in Africa under the right circumstances, it's perhaps best known for its staggering amount of corruption and banditry, and this is best seen in its massive oil theft problem. You see, the majority of oil produced in Nigeria is produced in the Niger Delta, and in order to steal it, thieves will illegally tap into pipelines and then pump the oil into waiting barges and boats. While some of this is refined locally, oftentimes vessels will carry the oil abroad, where it will be refined and sold on the black market. However, while Nigerian authorities have reported that attacks on System 2B, which is one of the country's main pipelines, have fallen dramatically due to increased security, most thieves simply take oil by either stealing oil transport vehicles or obtaining it through corrupt business practices. It's estimated that Nigeria loses 200,000 barrels per day to oil theft. This not only costs the country billions of dollars per year in tax revenue, but also makes the Niger Delta a risky place to drill in. Number 5. The North Korean oil rig. North Korea isn't exactly known for being an oil-rich country. After all, there are no proven reserves within its land borders, and even if there were, it would need a lot of help from its ally and benefactor, China, in order to make use of them. However, North Korea does have several oil deposits within its maritime borders, and it was for this reason that in early May of 2016, experts began to look on with curiosity when an oil rig owned by PetroChina entered North Korean waters. You see, the oil rig entered an area of North Korea that's only a short distance away from a series of exploration wells that were found to yield oil in the 1980s and 90s. Since it stayed in the area until October, many speculated that the oil rig was being sent in order to tap these and help develop the country's oil industry. With this being especially true since 2005, China and North Korea signed a memorandum of understanding that implied that China would cooperate with the DPRK on any commercial oil flows. However, to date there's been no news on the oil rig, and thus whether or not North Korea is part of China's plan to increase its trade and industrial capacity is yet to be seen. Number 4. The Moon Rig. While drilling for oil either on land or in the sea has a whole set of risks here on Earth, all of these are amplified in space. And while NASA isn't exactly looking for oil, in November of 2021, NASA announced that they would be creating a drilling site on the Moon. While this may sound crazy, the plan is to land the Nova-C lander near the Shackleton crater, which is a large depression located on the Moon's South Pole region. This lander will have 3 main missions, and while 2 have nothing to do with drilling, the third seems like it might be eyeing the potential to make the Moon into a lucrative cash cow. That's because the lunar lander is equipped with Trident, which is the short form name for the Regolith Ice Drill for Exploring New Terrain. Trident is a 1-meter-long instrument that was built to extract lunar regolith so that it can be analyzed and separated in a machine known as M-SOLO. On the surface, the lunar regolith isn't all that interesting, as it's simply the dust that's found on the surface of the Moon. However, drilling it and analyzing it will be critical for future space missions. That's because NASA scientists are trying to figure out whether or not astronauts could mine minerals, water, and oxygen out of this regolith, with the hope also being that the material could be used in the manufacture of lunar bases as well. However, the chance of failure for a mission such as this one is quite high, and so only time will tell whether or not this moon rig will be able to achieve its mission, despite the dangerous conditions. Number 3. Venezuelan rigs. For years, Venezuela was a booming South American hub of the oil industry. After all, it's home to the largest oil reserves on planet Earth, and even surpasses heavyweights such as the United States, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Russia. Yet in November of 2020, Venezuela lost its very last oil rigs, making it the first time in almost 100 years that there were no rigs drilling for oil in the country. Now, while this may seem a little crazy given Venezuela's thriving oil-rich past, the reason why oil rigs have left the country is due to the country's extremely hostile political environment. Oil was first discovered there in 1922, although due to its slew of unstable governments, oil production only began to really pick up in the 1970s. Venezuela then saw some of its golden years under Hugo Chavez, who from 1998 to 2013 instated a series of social programs that helped lift many of the country's working poor out of poverty. However, Chavez's regime was rife with corruption and authoritarianism, and under his successor, Nicolas Maduro, things only got worse. Maduro consolidated his control so tightly that he essentially discarded Venezuela's democratic government, and a combination of moronic spending habits, corruption, Western sanctions, and declining oil prices put Maduro on a slippery slope. By 2020, things had truly collapsed, and to this day most oil companies won't go anywhere close to Venezuela. Number 2. Goliat. While the Barents Sea may not be all that familiar to you, one of its main features is the extremely cold weather. After all, it lies north of Russia, Finland, Sweden, and Norway, and it's entirely up within the Arctic Circle, and as such, it isn't exactly the most comfortable of places to set up shop. Yet despite this, in 2016, 2 oil companies built Goliat. It's located 85 kilometers north of Hammerfest, Norway, and it's an offshore drilling rig located smack dab in the middle of this frozen hellscape. And due to this location, it faces some unique challenges. For starters, it commonly has to contend with negative 30 degrees Celsius temperatures, icing from cold sea sprays, and even at times storms and hurricanes due to the occasional deep troughs of low pressure. In order to protect against this, Goliat was constructed so that rain, snow, and ice drain and slide down the walls and roof, while underfloor heating cables ensure that exposed areas don't receive thick ice buildup. Since it's so often subject to very long nights in the winter, Goliat was outfitted with extra lighting so it's not too gloomy, and in order to power this remote platform, Swiss automation company ABB installed a subsea power link to supply clean power from the grid to Goliat. Now, while all of this may sound like a lot of work, it's reportedly worth it, as Goliat can process up to 100,000 barrels of oil a day and store nearly 1 million barrels of oil in its storage units. So while Goliat may be dangerous, it's still fully operational and seems to be well worth it. Number 1. The Somalian oil blocks. Somalia is known for being one of the world's most dangerous countries. After all, after the collapse of the country's central government in 1991, it essentially descended into a state of chaos. And while the central government has made a slow return to prominence, the country is still by and large lawless. However, this hasn't stopped the central government from taking steps to bring in some state revenue by selling off a set of offshore drilling areas. The licensing round for the project opened up on August 4th of 2020, and it's allowed 7 blocks of ocean off the Somalian coast to be offered up to oil companies. While drilling on a coast near Somalia, which is known for its piracy problem, may seem like a terrible idea, the opportunity is quite lucrative, as early modeling shows that there's a high possibility of oil being found in these areas. To top this off, Somalia has taken major steps in ensuring that oil operations in the area will be legally protected, because in February of 2020, the Somalian government ratified a new 2020 Somali Petroleum Law that updated previous laws to provide a stable, long-term legal regulatory framework that will help protect the offshore investments of oil companies. However, due to the ever-present threat of piracy, the chance of things going south is still extremely high. When the Somali government finally decides on which companies will get to access their offshore oil fields in 2022, these companies will be in for a ride that is both super lucrative and super risky. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.